This is a Gen Z Future Fortunes podcast, hosted by Jordan Johnson. This podcast will help you in the following areas: money management skills, teaching you to control your debt, building wealth building strategies, entrepreneurship, and most importantly, to show you how you can do this yourself. So tune in and turn up.
Welcome to the first edition of the Generation Z Future Fortunes podcast, hosted by myself. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan Johnson, and I have a guest today. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I did do some of my own homework. I know that your name is Rosie George. She's a financial advisor for Edward Jones.
Yeah.
She went to Dyke College.
You did do your research.
I did some homework, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, you did a great job. So I'll just pick up on some of the high points. Like you said, I'm Rosie George. I have dealt with money my entire life. I got an accounting degree early on, and my original career path was to be an accountant and just do budgeting and things like that, and managing other people's money. And along the way, investing found me, and I saw how we could really change our lives with investing. And I thought, I'm a professional, and I don't know this. How many other professionals just like me don't know this, right?
It's a lot of people.
A lot of people, right? So, and here I am.
So I'm going to start. I did pull some information from the internet.
Okay.
I looked up a study. So according to a study conducted collaboratively by NerdWallet, a platform used to educate consumers on financial products and services, as well as the Harris Poll, which is a market research and analytics company. It says here that 26% of Gen Zers don't see the value in building credit yet. Can you speak on that?
Wow. That's credit is almost everything. When I say that, you can't, without good credit, you would not be able to work in the financial services industry.
Why is that?
Because when you have bad credit and you're having money issues, you are susceptible to fraud. You might be, employers see you as a potential risk. Because if you're having money problems, you could embezzle their funds. You could embezzle a client's funds. There are all types of misappropriating cash that belongs to a business. There are all types of industries you cannot go in with bad credit. You cannot get into, have certain military clearance if you have bad credit. And no credit is worse than bad credit, if you could believe that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So everything revolves around those three numbers called your credit score. So your credit is very important. How much you pay for a car, if you got a car on credit. If you have excellent credit, you're going to get a better interest rate. If you have poor credit, chances are you're going to be paying a lot more in interest, sometimes double digits. If you have bad credit compared to a person that has good credit. When you go to buy a home, it's very important, and we can do like little simple things to start building our credit. One of the most important things that you can do towards building your credit is learn to manage credit debt, right? There's good credit and there's bad credit. Most times when a person has a mortgage or something type of installment loan, that's considered good credit, because hopefully your home is going to build equity, right? And so it's more like an investment. What they don't look at revolving credit. And when I say revolving credit, credit cards, department store cards, gas cards, or things like that as good credit. However, it's necessary to get at least 1 or 2 credit cards to establish yourself establish a credit history. There are 3 things that they look at when they're trying to determine your credit history. One is how long have you had the credit? Number 2 is, are you paying on time? And number 3, what type of credit do you have? Like I said, we talked about, you need all 3. You need revolving debt, you need installment payments, and you need like a car loan. Those are the different types of credit that would help you build a good, solid credit history. But one of the most important things is do what you can afford. If you can't pay that credit card off when the bill comes, don't get that credit card. But it's very important. Credit cards are used to, especially for young people, to establish credit.
I think that's one of the big misconceptions or mistakes that people make with credit is they see it as like free money. And that's not the case. Let's say you get $1,000 credit or a credit card with $1,000 limit. That doesn't mean you can just go spend $1,000. You have to pay that money back. So I think that's one thing that people need to know about credit is that money is not free and you have to pay it back. I also do have a question. You kept saying good and bad credit, right? What scores would you associate with good credit and bad credit? Like what score makes you have good credit and what score is considered bad credit?
Okay, there's 3 categories. Bad credit. Bad credit is anything in the 500s or less. Believe it or not, the credit score range for most credit card companies run from 450 up to 800. That's the range. So when you have a credit score less than 600, you're teetering in the bad credit, where you're more susceptible to higher interest rates. Average credit score is anywhere from 600 up through 700. Once you get above 700, say 740 and higher, you're considered to have good credit.
I'm aiming for an 800.
Yes, you can do it.
All right, so it says here that 28% of Gen Zers, which is my generation. If you don't know what Gen Z is, it's people, I think, born from 1990 to now.
Okay.
So that's my generation. I'm 18.
Okay.
It says 28% of my generation is not thinking about planning or investing for retirement. And I personally see that as something that you should take advantage of, especially at a young age, because you have time for your investments to grow. I looked up, I was on the internet, and it said that at 20 years old, if you start investing, you're going to have way more than you would if you started investing at 30 years old. And that 10-year difference, you lose a lot of money. I think it said, I forgot what the, like how much you invest was, but I think it said at 20, you'll have about 1.9 million. And then if you wait 10 years and start investing when you're 30, you'll only have about 900,000.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So let's talk about investing, right? When people think of investing, they think of the next hot tip in the stock market, right? Timing the market does not make a person rich. Time in the market is what makes you rich, right? So the more time you have, the less money you need to invest. For example, an 18-year-old, if they bought a mutual fund, and the mutual funds usually, some of them run anywhere from $250 to up to $500.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But can you explain what a mutual fund is for the people that don't know?
Sure. So a mutual fund is an investment. Most times when you talk about investments, everybody's heard of stocks and everybody's heard of bonds. But what they haven't heard of are mutual funds. See, mutual funds can either act like a stock or they can act like a bond. The beauty of a mutual fund is, and let me tell you how the concept came about. There were some fishermen up in New England. Fishermen, yeah, up in New England, and they wanted to invest, right? but none of them had enough money on their own. So they got together, a group of them, and they pooled their money together and they invested in some companies. So what a mutual fund does, instead of gathering all the friends together, what they did was they put companies together in one big pool, up to 200 in each mutual fund, and say, if you buy this mutual fund, you can have access to Amazon, you can have access to Disney, you can have access to Home Depot, you can have access to McDonald's. So it's giving a person of modest means a way to get involved in the stock market. Right? So the beauty of a mutual fund is your money. Okay, let's step back about mutual funds and stock, because we're going to talk about the stock since you guys are young.
Yeah, we're young people.
Right,
You
young
don't have
people.
so much life experience yet.
Not only that, the best thing that every young person has going for them is time.
Definitely.
Right? So bonds grow slow. So don't ever let anybody talk to you about bonds when you're in your teens, right? You want to be all about stock type investments, because a young person has time to weather the ups and downs of the market. So with that being said, the ups and downs of the market, when you invest in an individual stock, it costs you to buy it, and it also costs you to sell it. A mutual fund, you just pay one time to buy it. One and done.
So you don't have to worry about selling.
You can sell it, but it doesn't cost you to sell. Right? Stocks have a tendency to go up. You see more movement in a stock. Let's just say if you put all your money in, I'm going to make up a company, say XYZ company, and they manufacture beverages, soft drinks and things like that. Now, if you put all your money in that company, if that company decided to go, something happened and it went out of business, you would lose all your money. Now, if you went and purchased a mutual fund that had XYZ inside of it, along with up to almost another 200 companies, then you got instant safety. Your money is instantly diversified or spread out. So the odds of every single company doing bad at the same time is highly unlikely. So mutual funds give you diversification, safety in numbers, and it's also easier to get involved in the market.
Would you say that it's good to have a mix of both stocks and mutual funds? Because I'm actually invested in both.
Well, it's to that mutual fund. So I have a hypothetical that I often share when I'm talking to young people, is that if I bought this is one particular mutual fund, if I was 18 and I bought that mutual fund for $250, and I just put $50 away a month, $50 per month from age 18 until I got ready to retire. Any idea what that might be worth?
You said $250 a month?
Nope, $250 one time.
Oh, just once?
Once. And $50 a month.
And you said from 18 until you retire? What
Well,
age did you put on retirement?
Say 40 years, typical work lifespan.
40 years?
What do you think that might be worth? Just a rough guess.
$100,000.
Okay, that's a good number. That would be a good number if that was it. No, you're gonna be closer to almost $800,000.
I'm about to say, I hope it's not lower.
It's gonna be about $800,000. See, time is on your side. So that same $50, if a person was, say, 50, right, and they started investing $50 a month, and they did it for 10 years with the same mutual fund, how much do you think they have?
$250,000.
They would wish. It's going to be closer, like maybe 60,000 if they're lucky. Time
You
is
said that's at what age?
about 50 years old. right? Because they're almost to retirement. They only have about 15 years. So they'd be lucky to get $50,000 or $60,000, right? So the most important thing for young people to realize is time works for you, especially if you don't have a lot of money. And a lot of people make the mistake of saying, well, I'll wait and I'll get started later. And they lose out on all those years of compounding interest and your investment growing over time.
I hope everyone heard that. Even if you're young, you're never too young to start investing.
Never
Start
too
today.
young. Yes, you're never too young.
Start today. It says here that, let's see. It says Gen Zers, which is my generation, have time on their side now. Actually, let me rewind. I'm sorry. NerdWallet's personal financial expert Kimberly Palmer stated, Gen Zers have time on your side now. Saving for retirement just as you're entering the workforce can seem daunting, but starting early will pay off later. This is actually something that my dad works on me with. So when I was in high school, I'll say around 11th grade, he actually opened an IRA for both of us to start putting money in. I think at the time I was working at McDonald's. So he said, I got paid every 2 weeks. So I would talk to him and he said, every check you get, just put about $50 in the IRA. And so I was doing that. I was putting about $50 every 2 weeks in the IRA. What's that, about $100 a month? I was just doing that. And then I looked up, he would send me screenshots. And we actually have an accountant, Edward Jones, which is funny.
Do you really?
Yeah. He would just put money in there every month, and then he would send me screenshots of the balance. And I would just be like, wow. Because $50 a check doesn't feel like that much.
Right.
But you see it add up, and you see the number in your account increase, and it's like, wow, investing really works.
It does, and you know, it's a great point that you mentioned. When you have it come out of your check, right? You don't see it. You don't have time to think about, man, I could go out and go to a movie or something with this $50 or
Can't balance it.
right. You're trying to you got those two things on your shoulder. The good person telling you invest that money. The other one said, no, you gotta have a good time. You know, hang out with your friends and take in a movie. So you don't have to think about it. It takes care of it for you, and you have it deposited into your brokerage account. And over time, as you see that money grows, it does something that's very important. It motivates you to do more. You get excited about watching that balance grow. You get excited about your investments. And I want just to encourage everyone, you know, as soon as possible, you know, your parents can open custodial accounts for kids, right? So a lot of kids, when some of the more affluent people, they open accounts for their children at a very early age, and they start funding it as a custodial account. So when that child turns 18 or 21, they're already on their way to adulthood with a nice investment portfolio.
I'll do that for my kids.
Yes, and that's how we change our family trees. That's how we change us from a cycle of poverty into a cycle of wealth.
That's generational wealth.
Generational wealth, yep.
So can you explain, do you have to be 18 to open like an IRA?
No.
What is the age?
What happens is your parents has to open a custodial account for you. In order to open any bank account, you have to be an adult, or what they call age of maturity. So basically, you understand what you're doing, and that you're also liable for your actions.
So is there an actual number on that, or is it just up to their,
18.
18?
18, however, your parents can open an account for you at any age. It's called a custodial account. Once you reach the age of 18 or 21, depending upon the state that you live in, that account then is transferred over to the child. It becomes their property, because they're supposed to be responsible and know that if they do something they're not supposed to with this account, that they're going to be held liable.
You can lose your money.
Yes.
54% of Gen Zers and 48% of all Americans believe that having multiple credit cards is detrimental to a person's credit. which is untrue. Because I personally learned that one of the key factors to building your credit score is actually having multiple lines of credit.
Right.
So I currently have 2 credit cards that I'm working on building my credit with. And I plan on gradually getting more, but not too many, because that can be bad as well.
Right. It just reiterates what I said earlier about how you establish your credit. You have to, that's how you start. You start with the credit card. However, the part that most people miss in getting a credit card, either they're not taught, or a lot of times they used to give the kids credit cards when they got to college.
That's what messed a lot of people
That
up.
messed a lot of people up.
Like my parents' generation.
Exactly. And my kids too, right? You don't know anything about credit, so they think that that's money that they have.
That's how they got you.
And they would open up they stopped that as a matter of fact, because they stopped allowing those companies to come on campus, letting kids have credit cards that have no experience. So understanding credit and managing credit is very important, and that's something that discussions need to be had with the adult figures in your life that understand how credit works. Because if you get off on the wrong foot, it can haunt you for years.
Yeah, it's actually, I've heard it's actually hard to get back from like messing your credit up. Can it take like, depending on what's wrong with your credit, can it take like 5 to 10 years to get something off?
Well, it depends. It depends, and I say that most debt, if for some reason you get into credit card debt, and let's just say it went into collections, and the company did what we call charged it off. That means basically they wrote it off the books. They deemed that credit as uncollectible, and now it's sitting on your credit report. As long as it's sitting there, and if you don't touch it, don't pay, just leave it alone, just forget it, right? It's going to stay on your credit report for 7 years. After 7 years, it will drop off, but that's a long time to go without credit. The other thing is, let's just say you did mess your credit up, but they haven't charged off the debt, right? It's just in collections. What you can do is make arrangements to start paying on that debt again. And after a few months, as little as 6 months to a year, you can improve your credit. Did you know that for one payment that's 30 days late can take as much as 50 points off of your credit score?
I don't want 50 points off my credit score.
50 points can come out for one late payment. And the higher your credit score, the more they take off for that late payment. So one of the most important things that a person can do is always make sure that the minimum payment is paid on time. Because that's part of your credit report. Are you paying on time or as agreed? And that follows you for 2 years. So let's just say you got off on the wrong track and now you're trying to reestablish your credit. If you still have credit open and you can afford it, make arrangements with those creditors to get back on track with paying those bills, and you can reestablish your credit. And you can do it in as little as 2 years or less.
2 years or less. As opposed to 7?
Yep.
I actually do have one more question before we finish.
Okay.
Or not a question, but a stat that I want you to speak on. So It's a common misconception that carrying a balance month to month on your credit card is good. Can you explain it? Is that a bad thing or is it a good thing? And can you explain why?
Well, a lot of people think it's a bad thing, but some credit card companies or creditors want you to carry a balance, right? They want to know that you know how to manage debt, right? They want to see that you're able to pay this bill on time, month in and month out. But you don't necessarily want to carry credit card debt. The debt that you would have that is better with a better interest rate usually is installment debt. That's going to be like your car payments, your mortgage. Those are installments, but they want to see you have the ability and the wherewithal to pay your bills on time, month in and month out for a long period of time. Okay?
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. This was produced by Equity Movement 247 to reach this incredible group of young individuals. Guess what, Gen Z? You're up next. So follow us at Gen Z Future Fortunes at Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We want to hear from you.